right, sixth graders, here we are again. We are going to be working on Chapter 1, Lesson 2. It is ratios, and you are going to need to get your book open to page 19. Again, if you do not have a book, you're going to need some paper because we're going to have some vocabulary words and some problems that we're going to go through, and you're going to want to make sure that you have notes because you get to use those notes on quizzes. So, if I were you, I would highly suggest that you take really, really good notes. Okay, so we're going to jump right in on this. Let's take a look at this first question on page 19. It says, dogs. In her walking business, Mrs. DeGarbo walks 2 large dogs and 8 small dogs. Compare the number of small dogs to large dogs. Use yellow counters to represent large dogs and use red counters to represent small dogs. Here's the deal. We're just going to write L for large, S for small. Okay, makes it easy, right? So, how many large dogs do they have? She has 2, so I'm going to put 2 L's. And how many small dogs does she have? She has 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. By the looks of it, and knowing our numbers, obviously she has more small dogs than she does large dogs. But we're going to actually figure out a ratio. So let's take a look down below. It says 2 plus what equals 8? Well, we should know that. That's 2 plus 6, right? Okay, so there are 6 more small dogs than large dogs. How did we come up with 8? Well, take a look. There are 6 more small dogs than large dogs. So I can take one large dog and put it with a small dog. I can take one large dog and put it with a small dog, and that's it, right? Because I only have 2 large dogs, which means I have 6 small dogs left over. All right, 2 times what equals 8? 2 times 4. So take a look at this. There are 4 times as many small dogs as there are large dogs. That makes sense. 8 minus what equals 2? 8 minus 6 equals 2. Take a look what happens here. That means there are 6 fewer large dogs than small dogs. That means if we were to have 6 more, then they would be the same, right? But because there's only 2 large dogs and 8 small dogs, if we had 6 more large dogs, then they would be equal. 8 divided by 4 equals 2. So the number of dogs is 1/2 the number of small dogs, okay? Because we're taking the 8 and dividing it by 4, which gives us 2. So the number of large dogs is 1/2 the number of small dogs. All right, go ahead and turn the page. Well, I'm going to turn my page because I do it on my book too while I get this one up. All right, here's the key words. Ratio. This is so important because we're going to be talking about rates and ratios, and we have to remember the difference. So, ratio. Right there. It says there are many different ways to compare amounts or quantities. So, different ways that we can compare. We can use a ratio. Now, take a look at this. It says a ratio is a comparison of 2 quantities by division. Okay, if I were you, I would circle that, I would star that, I would highlight that. If you have a highlighter, I would highlight the whole thing right there, okay, or underline it, whatever you need to do. But we have to remember that a ratio is a comparison of 2 quantities by division. Now, here's the cool thing. Ratios can be written in 3 different ways, and you have to know all 3 ways, okay? So it's really important that you pay attention to this part, okay? Number 1. Okay, so going back to not going back, we're going to use these paper clips over here. I see that there are 2 red clips, 2 red paper clips, so I'm going to write 2 red. Again, really bad handwriting. You can laugh at me, it's okay, I laugh at myself. And then 3, 4, 5, 6, and 6 blue paper clips. So using what I know about that, I can write that into ratios. For example, 2 to 6, which means there are 2 red and there are 2 there are 2 red and 6 blue paper clips. Okay? Over here, you can write it with the word 2, or you can write it with a semicolon. So 2 red paper clips to 6 blue paper clips by using semicolons. Or my favorite, probably because I'm a math person, and this really goes really well with the definition. It is a comparison of 2 quantities by division. This fraction sign right there, because you guys have seen that before as a fraction sign, that's also a division sign. Okay, so this is the way number one, by actually writing the word 2 in between. The second way to write a ratio and the third way to write a ratio is as a fraction. So let's come down here and we're going to jump right into this question right here. It says, write the ratio in simplest form that compares the number of suns to the number of moons, then explain its meaning. So here's what we're going to do. First of all, I can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 suns, so I'm just going to write that over here so I know. And then I see that there's 2, 4, 6 moons. Now, I just want you to take a second and watch what I do. Let's see. I'm going to do I put these into two groups. Notice how I put them into groups. In this group right here, I have 2 suns and 3 moons. In this group right here, I have the exact same. I have 2 suns and 3 moons. That's going to come into play. Let's write this ratio in our 3 different forms. Okay, we're going to write it over here up at top, and we're going to write 4 to 6, 4 suns to 6 moons. We're going to write it with a semicolon, 4 semicolon 6, and then we're going to write it as the ratio, 4 over 6. Now, here's why we did greatest common factor yesterday. When I look at the number 4 and 6, I know that they have a common factor. I know that one of their common factors is 2. So I'm going to divide each of these by 2, which is going to give me 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So 2/3. Listen, 2/3. Listen to that. For every 2 suns, 1, 2, there are 3 moons. 1, 2, 3. Did you see how I just made that is called simplest? Oops. See, I was going to say right simplified. Simplest form. Right there. Okay. Oh my gosh. And I still spelled it wrong. Oh my goodness. Simplest. There we go. Form. Okay. So I have now taken that 4/6 and I have simplified it into 2/3. There's the bell. No, class isn't over yet. Stay with me. Okay. So again, I found out that for every 2 suns, there's 3 moons. 1, 2, 2 suns, 3 moons. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Still, all together, there was 4 suns and 6 moons. All right. So that's a ratio. Okay. Let's take a look at the next page, which is right down here for me. All right. We are going to take a look at categorical data. It says each piece of categorical data can be assigned to one group. Bar diagrams or tape diagrams and frequency tables can be used to represent categorical data. Ratios can be used to compare the data. So I want you to take a look at this. I love this question because you know when you guys get in 6th grade, you guys can chew gum as long as I don't hear it or see it, right? So it's like super cool. So this is talking about flavors of gum. So several students named their favorite flavor of gum. Write the ratio that compares the number who chose fruit to the number of students. So take a look at this nice little chart that they set up here. So we see that peppermint had 9 people, cinnamon had 8 people, fruit had 3, and spearmint had 1. Now, we know that the total for fruit is 3. Okay, because it wants to know how many for fruit. But it says write a ratio that compares the number who chose fruit, which we found was 3, to the total number of students. How am I going to find the total number of students? Should be pretty easy. If each of these is a response, all we need to do is add all those up. When we add those up, and I always like to group 9 and 1 make 10. 10 plus 8 is 18. 18 plus 3 is 21. There are 21 total students, right? So now let's write that as a ratio. We're going to write it 3 ways, and then we're going to look at that fraction, the last way, because that's where we're going to simplify, and I always end up running out of room, so I'm going to kind of come up here. So it is a 3:21 ratio, or it is a 3:21 ratio, but now this is where we can turn this into simplified. So I know 3 and 21 share a common factor of 3, so I can divide the top number by 3 and the bottom number by 3. Starting out very basic, we're going to get into so many cool things about fractions. Okay, so 3 divided by 3 is 1, and 21 divided by 3 is 7. So for every one person that chose fruit, 7 other people chose something else. Okay, so it's a 7-to-1 ratio. Right there, look at that, I just said that. Check that out. So for every 1 out of every 7 students preferred flavor gum. So we have 7 students here, 1 of them preferred flavor gum. No, I mean, we maybe would have taken a poll and it maybe would have been different. I mean, it kind of depends on my mood and my breath. If my breath is really bad, I gotta have like peppermint or spearmint. But if I just brush my teeth and I need some more gum, then I'm gonna go with fruit, right? I don't know. See, Miss Horner tells you all kinds of crazy things about her. Okay, let's go down below here and let's fill this out together. Okay, this is the way we can work through some problems, which is what I love. It says, Monday's yogurt sales are recorded in the table. Write the ratio that compares the sales of strawberry yogurt to the total sales. Then explain its meaning. Explain its meaning, guys. This is so important. Okay, this is something you will see on your homework. You will see this on your quiz. You have to be able to explain what your ratio really means. Okay, so for example, out of every 7 students, 1 of them chose fruit bubblegum. Okay, all right, so how many people chose strawberry? Well, we can look right at this little handy dandy graph and we know that it's 8. So we got to figure out the total. So we have 3 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8. So let's add them up together. 3 plus 6 is 9. 9 plus 7 is 16. 16 plus 8 is 24. Okay, so 24 total students. So I'm just going to put that down here too. 24 total students. So yogurt sales that were sold, there was 8 out of how many total? 24. Okay, look at that 8 and 24. Now, if you can't remember what the greatest common factor is by just looking at those, we're going to come over here. We're going to write GCF. We are going to list out the multiples of those numbers. Not the multiples, the factors. There it is again. I knew that was going to go off. Okay, 1 times 8, 2 times 4, and then we can do 24. 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6, oops, there we go, 4 times 6. The greatest common factor that they have is 4. So we're going to do, not 4, 8. I was like, that's not right. But look at, they have all these in common too, but the greatest common factor is 8. So we're going to divide each of those by 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1, and 24 divided by 8 is 3. So it is 1 to every 3. Okay, so 1 out of every 3 yogurt sales were strawberry. Okay, all right, I'm going to stop the video here. This one is done. If you feel comfortable and you're ready to go on to your homework because you're like, man, I got ratios, this is good. If you're like, I'd like some more practice, then I want you to hang around and watch the next video of part 2 so that you can get some extra practice.